From Weston-super-Mare to Exeter to the Premier League, and now scoring the winner in a major tournament semi-final for England. Ollie Watkins makes sure there will be no orange in Berlin, as Adrian Rabiot was taught a lesson by a young Spaniard only recently leaving school. And in the States, Miami's Messi engineers the final nail in Canada's coffin to usher a Colombia versus Argentina Copa America showdown into the spotlight. All that and more on the Betting Expert Football Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Betting Expert Football Podcast with your host, Sam Ingram, who is on somewhat of an emotional come down after a night in the stands at Signal Iduna Park in Dortmund. I'm joined by my South American expert, Nathan Joyce, the Rodrigo de Paul to my Messi, if you will. Hello, Nathan.
Hi, how are we doing? Yeah, well, look, I'm glad I wasn't in the stands for Copa America, so probably feeling a little bit better than you. And I'm sad this is coming to an end, but I'm excited to talk about the final and, of course, England at Euros as well.
Love it. And Jack Wright joins us again, getting the Betting Expert nod for the podcast finale of this major tournament summer. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Sam. Hello, Nathan. Absolute delight to be here. Look forward to chewing the fat on all things finals.
Lovely stuff. So the structure of this pod will first place focus on the Euro 2024 final and England's involvement, of course, before we head to the USA and to the Copa America with Nathan. Firstly, though, I'm going to kick things off rather selfishly and talk about England on Wednesday night and my experience there. I feel like I have to get someone off my chest because I've only actually recently just walked through the door. So, it was electric. I was in the stadium. I've never seen an atmosphere like it. I tweeted yesterday, actually, that in all the years and tournaments I've been following the national team, home and away, England beating Sweden in Samara was the best atmosphere in Russia that I've ever seen during and after the game. But that semi-final on Wednesday has definitely topped it. It was special. Winning via a late winner makes it 10 times better, probably, of course. And the England fans often get a lot of bad press, especially for off-field dealings, and often rightly so. There's a section of England fans that aren't there for the football, as we know. But in that stadium last night, it was electric. The atmosphere, unbelievable. And if there's any truth to the 12-man theory that hands an extra percentage or two to their lads on the pitch, then England will have that in Berlin. They will definitely outnumber the Spanish in that stadium. I have no doubts about that. And Jack, before we look at the final, I'd love to get your thoughts on the semi-final showing in Dortmund against the Dutch and just what you thought of England's performance.
I thought it was definitely improved, especially the first half. I thought that was what we expected from England through the tournament. I thought Trippier he's obviously come in, I think, unfairly. He's obviously doing a job for the team. He's doing a job for Gareth Southgate that's asked him to do it. He's obviously a trusted lieutenant to go out there and put in a sort of solid 6-7 out of 10 performance. And we knew that was going to be a real tough matchup. Denzel Dumfries is absolutely flying winger as such when he's in attack mode, and obviously a decent defender, as we saw from a couple of his moments the other night. But I thought Trippier did well, and I thought the first half showing was very good, actually. Foden come into the game, that Bellingham and Foden in those areas was superb. I thought they found the pockets of space in between the lines, that kind of box in between midfield and the Dutch defence very well, be it Foden, be it Bellingham. Mainu as well, breaking those lines and kind of taking the ball on the half turn and engaging with the Dutch. And I thought that was the key highlight from that. Unlucky, I think, obviously it's a great strike from Simons, and to go, again, they've shown resilience. That's one thing England have done, certainly in spades over the course of this tournament. If the performances haven't been up to scratch, then certainly the fact they could have easier down tools and been on a beach somewhere now if the attitude and the mindset wasn't right. And I think Southgate certainly brought that into the squad. So I think the performance, they kept at it, they played well, obviously got potentially fortunate with that 50-50 penalty call, but certainly deserved to go into the break at least level, potentially ahead. Second half, I thought it was a bit of a disappointment. I thought they just lowered their levels a little bit. Again, I thought it was a bit more what we'd seen already, a little bit slow paced. The change you'd expected to give more balance didn't really have that impact. I thought Dutch obviously changed that at half time, and that impacted England. And so England just was a little bit slow paced, I think, in that second half, and it looked like it was going to meander towards extra time. And obviously, until an explosive moment from Ollie Watkins and shown what people have been talking about: stretching the defence, running in behind them, offering for the ball as a slide rule pass from Palmer, and what a finish! As I'm sure you celebrated wildly amongst many other thousands of people.
I might have, yeah, and I'm not sure what you're on about, Jack. 50-50 for the penalty. Stonewaller from where I was sitting in Rosette.
Yeah, he's lucky to still be playing. Is Harry Kane after that? Obviously, yeah,
of course. Nathan, I'm sure you managed to catch the game. Is there anything that stood out for you? Any positives? Any concerns from the game?
England just went up a notch, didn't they? Especially in that first half, as Jack said, it was only a gear though. Let's not get too excited. We have been very negative on this podcast, so we can't all. Yes, we're going to get excited that England are in a final, but I think there's still a few question marks in there. And for me, the biggest one is still Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane is going to be potentially the hindrance in the final. Obviously, I was quite negative. I think I threw out a bet for him to have not a shot on target, and if it wasn't for that penalty, he didn't. He's the one for me which will hinder England in that final. It's similar to the Portugal Ronaldo debate at the moment. He just looks leggy. He just looks tired. So for me, I would be looking to probably start Tony or Watkins off the bench. I don't think just throw Watkins in because he scored. But everything else looked quite good. There was that 20-minute lull in the second half where it had a very Euro final against Italy vibe where England just kept dropping a little bit deeper, and it was all needless. I'm not really sure why England decided to drop deep and panic, but that seemed to be rectified, and as it seemed to be going to extra time, and we all knew as England fans where that would potentially go, but it didn't. Watkins popped up with as Jack said, it was an unbelievable strike and absolute bedlam in the crowd. Just for me, my concern in the final is Harry Kane, which sounds mad coming in. If I was to say this 4 weeks ago, for me saying I don't want Harry Kane to start the final, but just the way he's dropping deep, his first touch is all over the place. I'm just not confident he's the right person to lead the line. So yeah, more negativity from me, but I just feel like that could be the difference for England.
Okay, so are you suggesting we start Ivan Toney and then bring Watkins off the bench? Is that what you want to see?
If I was in charge, but I'm not, yes, in a word, yes, that's what I would be doing.
That's fine. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just wanted to clarify.
What's your take, Sam?
Did you just want a clip just in case if England win it and Harry Kane scores a couple of goals? Is that what you wanted? That's exactly right. That's fine. Well, you've got it now, haven't
you? Look, if it was me, I would love Southgate to be maybe not as bold as that, but I'd like to go into this game thinking that there's a chance that he might start Kane and really freshen it up a bit. I don't know what I would do. I'd maybe consider starting Harry Kane, see how he goes. If we have to change it at halftime, we have to change it at halftime. Obviously, he's an important player for us, but he's just not been at it this tournament, and I wouldn't be fully against Ivan Toney starting as well, to be honest, Nathan. I'd just like to start by touching on the winning goal and the English football pyramid in general. I know Jack bets on it a lot too. It's kind of where I do most of my punting in the EFL, and Ollie Watkins gets the winner in a major tournament semi-final after spending the majority of his footballing upbringing in the fourth tier with Exeter City down in the southwest, very close to Plymouth, via loans in non-league with Western-super-Mare, as mentioned in the intro. And he rightfully gets his chance against the Dutch after an impressive Premier League season at Aston Villa. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that because this England national team setup is full of players who graced the EFL before their shot at the big time. So yeah, that was brilliant. And yeah, just made the goal so special for a number of reasons. But I think that England deserved it, controlled the first half, didn't create many clear-cut chances, but I feel like we controlled proceedings on the whole. Slowed down in the second half, as you mentioned. England created 0.1 XG in the second half and the Dutch 0.39 XG. But overall, I was really disappointed with the Dutch. I don't think they offered much at all in terms of really good goal-scoring opportunities. And I know England didn't, but England definitely edged it on the whole. And And yeah, what did you think about Xavi Simons' strike? Because I haven't watched any highlights actually, but from where I was from, where I was watching on from, it looked like Pickford maybe should have done better. I don't know what you thought about that, Jack. Is that fair enough?
I think so. I think there was an element that he was slightly blindsided by Walker coming across, but I don't. Right, I think okay. But I would. That's giving him like an absolute kind of pass there. I'd be looking for a keeper to get. He got a little touch on it, got a lot of fingertip on it, but I think from that range, obviously he's then striding onto the ball, and he was kind of stretching for the strike as well, wasn't he? I think it was obvious what was coming. You've got to set yourself, and you'd expect an international goalkeeper to be getting a much better hand on that for me. And I think it's been a theme, and I've been a little bit of a detractor of Jordan Pickford. I know he's been very much given lots of credit for his performances for England. I just feel that there's always that question mark of shooting from range, that he does look susceptible. If that is a decent strike, that you've got a chance of scoring against him from outside the box.
I think I
don't know if Spain have got anyone that could do that or not, but
they might have. They might have 3, 4, or 5. So France versus Spain, Jack. It was more of the same from France, and that has ultimately cost them in the end. What were your thoughts on that semi-final?
Well, it shocked me initially because I was sitting there holding all the negative cards. I was looking at under goals, both teams to score no. I thought Spain would have to grind them down. I thought France would sit in deep. I think they'd keep it compact and defend resolutely as they have done all tournament. And then it exploded into life, and I was grateful for the fact that you'd actually put a tweet out, hadn't you, saying about the record of under 2.5 goals in semi-finals. Yeah. And I was like, I think I read the script wrong, or generally speaking, it was a bit of a shock for everyone that it exploded into life so early on. There could have been a goal. Ruiz could have scored prior to France taking the lead with a great chance. So that kind of set the tone, really. And it was as if Spain brought France out of the shell, maybe unexpectedly for France as well. But yeah, 25 minutes in, 2-1, I could then go and enjoy the game because all my bets were dead in the water that I'd placed on that one. And yeah, it was quite an explosive first half. But you're right in what you said. I think the game panned out. It basically became why France are out of the tournament and why they struggled and why they didn't top their group and go on that other side of the draw is the fact they just didn't take their chances. They had 2 or 3 very good chances. Mbappe had one, Theo Hernandez had one in the second half, and they've got to be taken at this level to if you're going to win the tournament. And like I say, they didn't win their group purely on that basis as well. And it was an issue clearly throughout the tournament for them that they just didn't take those chances when they came along. They didn't create many. When they did come along, they needed to take them, and they didn't. And I say the second half, I think Spain controlled it. They kind of outpassed them. And although France did create a couple of chances, as you'd expect, really, with nations of that quality, Spain kind of kept them at arm's length, really, through that. And like I say, they controlled that second half and put some composure back into the game after a real frantic start.
Yeah, Jack, I was definitely sat alongside you 25 minutes in with a few unders bets looking a bit red-faced. But it was another low-margin game. I've just got the stats up in front of me. I think there was 1.85 XG in the whole game. And similarly to the England match, that fell under the 2.0 expected goals line. And it's via Xavi Simons's and Lamine Yamal's code efforts. If you're going to score a couple goals from 25 plus yards in a semi-final, then fair enough. That gives it a good chance at ending over 2.5 goals. And I think whilst we were on the subject of Lamine, maybe we should speak about him because I know it's all been said already. 16 years old, turned 17 on Saturday, but what a player! And it looks like he might win Young Player of the tournament and Player of the tournament, which has never happened before. And at 16 years old, I don't think that will happen again either. Like, he hasn't long left school. I think he's recently finished his exams. And in terms of the semi-final, what I was really impressed with was Spain's game management against a very good French team. Although a French team not maybe firing this tournament, they went a goal behind, then took the lead promptly in the first half. And in the second half, when they were leading the game, they I think they zipped the ball around quite nicely. Didn't create much of note in the second half, but they didn't need to. They had 61% possession in the second half. And for large spells nearer the end of the game, where France were desperate, France couldn't get near the ball. And you got that three in midfield, Olmo, Ruiz and Rodri. They're magnificent together. We all know what Rodri can offer. But in Fabian Ruiz and Dani Olmo, I think they're right up there for player of the tournament for me. I had a bet on Fabian Ruiz at, I think it was maybe 16-1 a week ago for player of the tournament. I'm not sure if he's going to get that now. But he's been great. And Olmo, obviously, he's been primarily used off the bench before Pedri's injury. Something we mentioned on the last pod, which has been somewhat of a blessing for Spain, losing Pedri, which you wouldn't have guessed beforehand. And yeah,
I was surprised to see Rodri was actually the favourite for player of the tournament prior to the semi-final. He does what he does, and I suppose you get a little bit kind of used to him being so exceptional and just going about his business. But I thought Olmo and Ruiz have been superb, and obviously Yamal speaks for himself as the stuff that he's done, and you expected that to be a shoe-in for young player of the tournament. I had a little bit on him at 8-1 prior to the semi-final to be player of the tournament. I just felt that he could potentially be that kind of headline maker, and obviously that was one good thing about that game when he curled one in from outside the box. That certainly slashes his odds. So that's they're dominating the market up there, aren't they? With some, I thought, say Ruiz, I think has been absolutely exceptional this tournament, and as you say, almost come in and absolutely grabbed his opportunity with both hands. Sliding doors moment a bit with that injury to Pedri, wasn't it?
They're looking quite good, aren't they? Which is terrifying, to be totally honest. And this will be England's first ever major tournament final played outside of England against the Spanish side boasting 13 goals at the Euro 2024. And only France in 1984 have scored more goals in a single Euros edition with 14. So, which is, makes me feel a bit uneasy. Now, looking ahead to bets for the match in Berlin, Jack, can England win the lot, or should Spain be striding into this thing with their chest out, ready to swat the English aside after a controlled performance versus the French?
Well, England obviously can turn it on. They can put in a performance, and we've seen it. As I said, they've been absolutely, the resilience that they've shown has been certainly one impressive thing. We know England can defend, and they've certainly got a chance. You've got players like Foden, Bellingham. I know he's on fumes at the moment, but him, even like say Harry Kane, right place at the right time. Harry Kane, despite what we've talked about, can still walk away with a golden boot under his arm from this tournament, which is incredible, really. Obviously, a couple of goals where he's in the right place at the right time, and the penalty as well. But there's nothing stopping him getting another one of those in this game either. So I think Spain are rightful favourites. Absolutely, they are. They've been sensational. They've obviously won all 6 games. Only one of those needed extra time as well. Every minute of extra time, admittedly, against Germany. But I think the football that they've played, De La Fuente has come in and implemented stuff that he's obviously done through all the youth age groups with the European Championships that he's managed those under teams there. I think that's a common theme we're seeing. Obviously, Gareth Southgate's done a similar thing for England as well. But yeah, I think Spain are rightful favourites to how they've played. Top goal scorers as well, and so the nature of how they've gone about their business also. But it's a final, and England are going to be looking at these moments of games where they've looked to be down and out, and they've managed to find ways of coming back, and they've got strength in depth on the bench. And despite being kind of reluctant or late to use them, they've been coming off for Gareth Southgate. I saw a stat saying that his average minute bringing his first sub on is like 80 minutes in this tournament. Only one team's been later than that in the knockout stages. So I think that's obviously been levied at him as an issue. But the subs that he's brought on have certainly had an impact, as we saw the other night, highlighted no better than that.
Okay, so if you had to put your money down, pick a bet, what are you going with?
I've got to go with Spain. I have got to go with Spain. If I'm say taking the head and heart situation out here, I just think looking how Spain have played, looking how England have played. So I think England's key players, you talked about Harry Kane being He looks injured. He looks like as if he's completely struggled throughout the tournament. Jude Bellingham said on more than one occasion that he's struggling as far as his fatigue is concerned, and is still relatively disjointed. They haven't stuck a full 90 together. So how Spain have got it, and the match winners that they've got, and the way they go about their business, as I said, I think they've just got key players in the key areas and the match winners there as well, which I think England have held the cards on that up to this point in the tournament. I think England have had those players that can win a match where the opponents really haven't had that. This is the first time, I think, where you look at the 1 to 11s and you go match winner there, match winner there, match winner there. So I think, if pushed, I'll go with Spain to lift the trophy.
Okay, I don't like that. Nathan, no, it's all right. I know I've got you on for the Copa America, but I want to milk you for anything that I can do. Will England win on the weekend?
No. I'm so sorry. The way I look at it is, if you said to me 4 or 5 weeks ago that it was going to be Spain versus England in the final and Spain were 2.5, I probably wouldn't be touching that in 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. But from the evidence we've seen over the last 6 matches, I think 2.5 is a really big price. I was quite surprised when I saw that just because of how big they are, I would be leaning more towards Spain. I know, Jack, you've done a bit more of a safety net in terms of lifting the trophy, which is probably a better nap, to be honest with you. But 2.5 is just a big price. And I think England, they've had these key moments, and that's where you have to sort of try and be a bit more sensible. Yes, you can look at the Bellingham moment and the Watkins moment and say, have England got one more in them? But I don't think they do. I think this is where they run their course and look to reach a final after a really poor group stage. And obviously that first game, which in the knockouts, which was nearly Iceland 2.0. And I think Gareth Southgate thought he was a dead man walking at that point. So for him to turn it around, I think it shows a lot within the side. But I think the way the Spanish play and the way they can knock it about and the confidence they'll come into this game, I think they'll get the job done. But I don't think that's any discredit on England. I think at the start of the tournament, yes, England favourites, whether that's right or wrong. But how the tournament's gone, I think England can actually be fairly proud, to be honest with you. We've slated them quite a bit on this podcast. We said that Southgate's not been good enough with his approach, but they've always gone up a notch. And I think in that last game, it was actually a pleasant surprise to see England get at the Netherlands. And I think even at half-time, if you look at it from a neutral point of view, you would say that England were capable of going on and winning that game. And I think the Dutch were a little bit scared and they didn't out of ideas and didn't know what to do. And as Jack said, the subs have come a lot later than what we've wanted to. We've been screaming at the TV for Southgate to change it. But when he has made those changes, it has worked. I just feel like that could be a little too late against the Spanish, and it could already be in a situation where England are chasing the game 1, maybe 2. So I think 2.5 at Spain is very big.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? We got Spain at 2.50, England at 3.40, and the draw at 2.80. Now, if these two lined up against each other on the opening match of match day 1, do we think that England would be favourites?
Absolutely. I think they would, yeah. I think going into the tournament and at any point of time, probably over the last 24 months, these two sides meet on neutral territory. England will be the favourites. The odds would probably be reversed from what they are here, if not even more in England's favour. This is a market that's been formed based on what we've seen over the last 4 weeks rather than what we've seen over the last 2 years or say 12 months or so. So absolutely, I think that's the case. And you decide now whether you want to go with what has been the form over more of a longer period of time, zoom out a little bit and take a picture of what we've seen over, say, a longer period of time, over a bigger body of work, or we go, no, this is about the here and now. This is the form. This is what I've seen with the eye test. This is what I've seen. The data backs it up as well. And I'm back in the form horse here that have shown themselves in the current tournament.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because there's no right or wrong or right way to go about this. Obviously, the right way is whoever wins at 90 minutes, but it's a really interesting dynamic. And I am a worried Englishman. I think Spain should beat England going off what we've seen this tournament. England will have to rely on their defensive setup being as stingy as they have been all tournament. We need to keep it tight back there and create another low margin game in terms of expected goals conceded. If they do that, England has a chance. If England win, I'd imagine it will come in extra time or penalties. I think what we need to do is we need to knock Spain out of their stride, make sure they don't get into a rhythm, get in their faces. They'll want the ball. We know that. They'll want to attack England. They won't want to be pressed aggressively. They won't want England's front line and midfield to be all over their defence, the weakest part of their system, and their midfield free and causing them problems. But I'm not sure we'll see that approach. I think it might play out as England retreating further and further back and Spain keeping the ball, zipping the ball around nicely like we know they can do and we know they will, and ultimately in the end punishing England. If that happens, then I think it'll be a really tough game for England to navigate, especially in the 90 minutes, and come out of it successfully. You got the goal line at 2.0. I considered that because betting experts, Betsy's projections have the projected goals total at less than that, but we saw over 2.5 goals cash in the semi, and I could see a final playing out where maybe Spain take the lead, England get back in the game, and then it's anyone. So that over that 2.0 goal line could definitely be threatened. So I've stayed away from that.
I think this game actually has got goals in it. I think because of how Spain will go and attack it, it possibly gives England a chance to have a bit more space than they've been used to in the earlier stage. We saw that first half against the Netherlands where England actually had a bit of space to play in, and that's when they started to look better. What has been the case with the lower ranked nations that have kind of kept it tight, compact, and with a lower block, England has struggled. This game will be open for them because Spain only know one way to play. And yes, of course, they've got the best insurance policy in the world, probably in Rodri patrolling there, but I think it will still allow England some space. But I think possibly the market's overreacted a little bit to what the expectation is of a final and going deep into tournaments with the goals. It's not really been the case. You know, you look at the goals, as I say, both semi-finals went over, albeit England's just because of that last, but it looked like it was going to be over for much of that first half, didn't it? Where with the early goals in it. And you look at 6 of the last 7 games in the tournament have seen both teams score. So obviously if both teams are scoring, you're already covering that 2 goal line. So it's then a case of getting some extras on top of that. And I think that actually is there for taking. Spain have conceded, they kept clean sheets in all group games, but conceded in every knockout game. So that's something for England to obviously grasp hold of and look to continue that trend as well. And 4 of England's last 5 games have seen both teams score as well. So there's goals at both ends of the pitch in this one. And I think with that being the case, that goal line is coming into view quite nicely.
I think you're spot on, Jack. Even though since the millennium, in the 6 finals at the World Cup and the Euros, 5 out of 6 finals have seen under 2.5 goals. And if you had placed the 1 unit stake on each game for under 2.5 goals, you'd have seen a 41.5% return on investment. But I do agree with Jack. This game, this matchup with the 2 teams feels a little bit different, even though it's a major tournament final.
I think this an early goal, isn't it? If there's an early goal here, clearly completely changes the dynamic. The longer it can stay at 0-0, then obviously that's going to change things from how I've now talked about it. But I feel there is an early goal in this one. And of course, last time England were in the final, the last edition of the Euros, 2 minutes until they broke the deadlock. And I'm sure you'd take that again this time round. Absolutely.
I'll quickly end with where I've ended up. To be honest, I've got no real fancies for the game. There's nothing that stood out to me, and I thought, that's a really good price. I'm going to have to get on that, especially with, you know, how big the game is and how tight and cagey it might be, and how that nervous energy might affect a young Spanish team and might affect and usually affects this England side. It's so hard to call. So with me not being fully sold on any of the markets in front of me, I'm going to split a 1 unit stake. I've got Spain to win in extra time at 9-1 and England to win on penalties at 8-1. So 2 big prices. If it is tight and cagey, and even if it's not, if we get a 2-2 or a 3-3 and this thing rumbles on into extra time, I think going off what we've seen, England are looking quite lethargic maybe. all quite leggy towards the end of games. I think Declan Rice is one. He's not getting about the pitch like we see him do at Arsenal. Nathan will tell you Harry Kane is another. He's not looking at the top of his game. There's a few in there, maybe Kyle Walker too. He's looking like the shadow of the man we saw a few years ago at Manchester City. So if this thing goes into extra time, I could see Spain maybe taking advantage of that. And if they don't, and if it goes to penalties, we saw recently somehow England have transformed into this really, really good penalty-taking nation with a good goalkeeper between the sticks, with someone that if he gets 5 or 6 penalties taken at him, I would expect him maybe to save one. So if this thing goes to extra time and it's decided there, I'm going for Spain at 9-1 with half a unit. And if it goes to penalties, I'm going for England at half a unit at 8-1. So 2 big prices, and that's where I'll be ending on that game. So we'll forget about the Euros and we will head over to the States. Nathan, it's Argentina versus Colombia in the Copa America final. Let's start with Argentina versus Canada in the semi. You called that spot on with Argentina and under 3.5 goals on last week's show. How did you view that as a contest?
I actually want to start with Rondon bet because we need another update, don't we? Just beforehand.
Let's do that.
Just because it still could be sensational. Obviously, Rondon hasn't scored because he's no longer in the tournament, but he's still sitting in second place with 3 goals. There are 11 players on 2 goals, but only 4 of them will be playing in the final. So unless the final gets incredibly out of hand, we should be looking at a third of 150-1 payout on Rondon. So I just had to get that in there because that's the one I've been solely focused on now throughout the podcast. So I thought a mini update on Rondon was definitely worth bringing back to your attention. But yeah, look, Argentina, Canada, exactly what Argentina wanted from the game. They didn't really get out of second or third gear. They haven't really needed to all tournament. Scored an early goal. We didn't see that in the group stage. They sort of struggled. All games were a draw at halftime before finally wearing teams down. Now against Ecuador and Canada now, they have broke the deadlock in that first 45 minutes. But they only had 3 shots on target and scored 2 goals. But it's a semi-final of the tournament. There was no need to go chasing 3, 4, 5, 6 goals. Obviously, Lionel Messi got his first goal of Copa America. And I'm not sure if either of you saw that, but it was a Enzo Fernandez shot on the edge of the box where Messi either decided to try and get out of the way or nick it, and it's flicked off his shin pad and gone in. So you can't really count it. But Messi's finally off the board, so I don't know if they're going to start giving him player of the tournament now. So look, Messi's got his goal, so he's not going to be the headline story with his first and only goal in the final if that happens. But Argentina, they've just been solid. There's nothing really to update you on there. They haven't changed. They haven't really been tested all tournament, apart from maybe the game against Ecuador, where obviously Ecuador scored in the last minute, and I think that sort of threw them. But Emi Martinez is a penalty saving machine and bailed them out once again there. So I think it's a nightmare final for them in terms of Colombia, but the route and the preparation has almost been flawless and perfect for them. No injuries, no one's tired. Yes, Messi's only scored 1, but they have so many other options. Julian Alvarez scored against Canada. He's on a couple of goals now. Lautaro Martinez, who's coming off the bench, is leading the way with 4 goals. McAllister was exceptional against Canada in the middle. Enzo Fernandez, DePaul, there's so many top players there. Back in January, when you first told me to write a Copa America piece, there was 7-4 to win the title. And then it's looking like a really good price just purely because of the route. They've had the fortunate way of avoiding Uruguay, Brazil, now Colombia in the final. So they're only being really tested. So it will be interesting to see how they approach this game because they can't go into it as they have been doing where it's been 10, 20 minutes to settle into the final. They won't have that opportunity against Colombia. So that will be really interesting. But they're coming into it well rested, no injuries, and Lionel Scaloni will be really happy with this. And look, let's not forget, it's going to be Messi's, potentially Messi's last game, Di Maria's last game. That has been confirmed. So it's really sad to see those 2 players finally leave the scene who have been there since day dot from my point of view. And then also for them to bow out in a final is the right way and probably deserved for both of them, especially Lionel Messi. So everything's set up for them. But this Colombia side, and we'll get into that Uruguay game in a minute, are relentless. And it's going to be a really, really fascinating final. And the one team probably Argentina did not want in the final is Colombia.
Yeah, it's an end of an era, isn't it, for those Argentina lads, like you said, Messi and Di Maria. And I think Messi's probably scored better goals than the one we saw in the semi, I think.
Just about, yeah.
You'd probably have to say that, but look, a nick off a shin pad, you take that all day long as a striker up top, definitely. You mentioned it briefly there. The other semi-final was Uruguay versus Colombia, which sounded mouth-watering on paper, maybe a little overshadowed with what happened after the game in the stands, but on the pitch, did it live up to expectations?
Yeah, I actually think it was one of the games of the tournament, unless you were supporting Uruguay. It had everything you'd expect in a South American game. It would turn into a basketball game, and I think I've said that on the podcast a few times already. Daniel Munoz's red card in the first half was ridiculous, and he's been everywhere. He's probably been one of their best players. There's been two of him on the pitch at times, but there won't be any of him in the final. So that's going to be a complete shame from a neutral point of view, because he scored 2 goals. He's been flying up the wing. Argentina's fullbacks are probably the weak link out of the team to get at, but he's not going to be there. But they deserve to be in the final. 28 games unbeaten now. Drew with Brazil in the group stage 1-1, but that's all they needed to finish top and face Panama. So that worked out perfectly, but they should have beaten them. They were all over a poor Brazil side. And look, Uruguay had 45 minutes under Marcelo Bielsa to break down Colombia, and they didn't. Now you can look at it two ways. Colombia set up incredibly well defensively, but knew how, and Nestor Lorenzo was brave in his decisions, maybe similar to Southgate, in terms of recognize when to take James Rodriguez off and put on more players who are going to bring up the ball up the pitch. They attacked with pace. They hit the crossbar in the last minute. They weren't just hoping to sit on that 1-0 lead. Uruguay didn't offer too much, and it was really disappointing. Darwin Núñez was the Liverpool Darwin Núñez in this tournament in the end. He came into it as one of the strikers I had a lot of hope for, scored 5 goals in South American World Cup qualifiers, a different animal under Bielsa, yet he only finished the tournament with 2 goals in a group of Panama, Bolivia, the US, missed a sitter against Brazil, which I spoke about last week, had 3 key opportunities in the first half and didn't take any of them. And it's ultimately cost Uruguay a place in the final. So Colombia will be relieved that he didn't turn up. But what I see the difference here for the final is Argentina are well rested coming into this. They've had that extra day. Colombia then had to face Uruguay the day after with 10 men for an extra 45 minutes. Daniel Munoz is not going to be there. Richard Rios, who's been a key player in the middle for them, he went off injured, so he's doubtful to start. So there's a few things coming in there in terms of what I'm probably leaning towards the bets, which we'll get into. I think a lot of people are getting excited about Colombia, 28 unbeaten. The informed team of the tournament, high press, high energy, Luis Diaz, James Rodriguez, who's got 6 assists at Copa America. We spoke about it last week on the podcast. If there's going to be a difference in that game, it's probably going to be his left foot. And he's the one who assisted Jefferson Lerma's header in the first half. So if Argentina avoid giving away cheap free kicks, that's probably going to be their game plan if they're going to win this game in 90 minutes or extra time. But I just feel like a leggy, tired Colombia coming into this could be the difference. And they've had to play Brazil, yes, then Panama, but Uruguay. So they've had a tough run where Argentina have pretty much waltzed to the final. And Argentina have been there and done it many a times. And everyone's getting caught up with the whole Colombia angle of 28 matches unbeaten. But Argentina have lost 2 games in 62 matches now, which I would argue is probably better. It'd be interesting to see where Colombia are in 60 games. And I can guarantee they've probably lost a few by that point. So I think everything's sort of slightly just in favour of Argentina for this one.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Nathan. I don't think it should be understated when a nation is able to have 24 hours plus more rest than the others in a major tournament where stress is at its highest on the mind and on the body. So yeah, that's interesting. You should mention that. Jack, before we head on to Nathan's bets for the final, I'm just curious, have you had a chance to bet on or watch much of Copa America, or has your focus been solely in Europe?
Can you not tell from the bags under my eyes that I've been able to multitask and be doing both those things? Yeah, I've really enjoyed Copa, actually. Not just because Nathan's been providing an absolute winner after winner, but it's been a good watch. It generally is, isn't it? Those tournaments. I really, and I agree with Nathan, I really enjoyed that Colombia Uruguay game the other night. Said the red card at half time, you thought, is that going to spoil it? But Colombia just worked their socks off, and James had an absolute meltdown, didn't he? Like it was the substitution that was saving him probably from a red card, because he was absolutely going crazy at the referee after it was the decision not to stop the play for Rios. Left him injured, didn't he? He left him injured down there and let Uruguay carry on.
It was very South America, that game, and that was just another thing. Yeah, to leave a player down injured for that long, the game went out of play, and then they continued, and then James Rodriguez, just for a bit more context, was screaming in the referee's face, got booked, and then seemingly continued for a couple of minutes afterwards as well. So. Yeah, this is going to be the key difference here, and sorry to interrupt, Jack, but where James Rodriguez is going to be your sort of the leader within that team. Look, he's the captain. He's meant to be the calm player, yet he was the one who was pulled off. And in that final in Miami, it's probably going to be heavily Colombian fans again. They've had so many fans everywhere they've gone and outnumbered them. And I just feel like the occasion could get the better of them. And that's when you need to turn on players like James Rodriguez for a cool head. And he definitely didn't show that against Uruguay.
No. But no, it's been a great tournament. And as I say, there's generally lots of angles of attack, isn't there? And so I think you mentioned it earlier, the set pieces of Colombia are going to be the focus that they can look to try and get at Argentina here. It's kind of gone to expectation as far as Argentina's that route through to the final looked like it was made for them, wasn't it? Just to say effectively book their place in Miami from the get go. So, but yeah, let's hope it's another cracker. I'm sure it will be. And I say it's been a very enjoyable tournament to watch with plenty of betting angles thrown in as well.
Jack mentioned it there. Nathan has been on some superb form throughout the tournament. I don't have the numbers in front of me because my admin. It's been a bit up and down over the past few days. So, but I'd like to say, Nathan, maybe you're on 20 winners for the tournament. Must be close out of like 25.
It's more. I think when I was last checking, I had between 25, 30 when I was last going through them, because I had a run where I got 16 out of 18 prior to the quarterfinals, and then I've had, I think, at least 2 out of 3. I need to go back and do it as well. We should have had it in preparation, so I can only apologise for that. But there's probably no need to apologise if anyone's gotten half of the bets. It has been a very good tournament for me personally. So, I know I've weighed in with a couple of selections for the Euros, which have gone not so well. But I think people can forgive me with my interests probably elsewhere.
I think we can forgive you. Speaking of winning bets, Nathan, Colombia do enough to get to the final. How are you approaching this in terms of a betting selection? What's your general outlook into how this 90 minutes might go? Is it just a case of Argentina turn up, they play well, they get the job done?
Yes and no. I actually think this is, I know it's the final, but I actually think this is the toughest game to bet on throughout the whole tournament. And we can speak really positively about Colombia and how they've managed a much more difficult route. But the elements I've touched on there, which even data probably can't lean on in terms of that extra day, being tired from playing with 10 men as well, I think that'll be a factor. They haven't been in the final or won it since they were hosts in 2001, where look, Argentina have been there and done it for many years now. Okay, they're very experienced in these finals. And yes, it's in Miami, but I do think it will be a largely Colombian-based crowd. However, I do think that has thrown up a few bets, and look, Argentina at under 3.5 has been my go-to throughout the tournament, and it will probably be my go-to throughout the World Cup qualifiers as well. It's just how they get the job done. But this is the first game at Copa America where they have extra time, so I think it'll be foolish for me to dismiss that completely within my first bet. And I think my favourite bet would be for Argentina to lift the trophy and under 3.5 goals. I think just having that extra sort of protection for a team who are highly experienced. I think the journalists already have the headlines typed out for Di Maria and Messi, and probably have a fair few weeks now, and they're ready to press go on that. And I think it will just fall in their favour. It could be Lionel Scaloni's last match as well, because he's threatened to sort of walk and leave the job once Messi's done. So that'll be really interesting to see. So if it is Scaloni, Messi and Di Maria's last game, it's hard to bet against them coming out on top. They've rarely been threatened all tournament, so you could argue that Colombia will get at them, and that could sort of rock the boat. And my second selection is halftime draw at 1.952, I believe, at the time of recording. The reason why I like that is because I feel like Colombia will approach the first 10, 15 minutes quite aggressive, and I think Argentina will see that come in, and I think they will set up perfectly defensively, just ride out the storm. And I think they know what they're going to do in the second half. We've seen it throughout the group stages, picking teams off with how they can play and move the ball incredibly well as teams begin to tire. And I just think Colombia's lack of experience will sort of catch them out. So yes, their unbeaten run may tick on to 29, but potentially Argentina can pick them off in extra time. And I've already touched upon Martinez in goal and how incredible he has been from penalty shootout. So if it does go all the way, then that's another opportunity for the bet to be salvaged. So halftime draw, Argentina to lift the trophy on under 3.5. And then my final selection is the final, so I'll throw 3 out there. For Argentina to score in the second half at 1.83 is if you just want to load up on the bets for Argentina to get the job done in the second half. Now, I think that has legs. I think there's just so many attacking players there, so I don't really want to repeat myself for that particular bet. But the way I see it going is draw at halftime and then Argentina to nick it. And I think everybody wants the fairy tale story for Colombia, and I think it will do wonders for South American football. A lot of it's becoming quite predictable at the moment, bar Brazil. I think football as a whole is probably becoming quite predictable. So I think if Argentina don't win this, it'll be a great win for South American football. But I just don't see it happening if I'm going to be completely honest. So Argentina to just about nick it, but that's been the theme with the bets. It served me well, so I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, brilliant analysis, Nathan. As always, I've not bet too much on this Copa America, and I've not watched too many games. But for some reason, the games that I have watched have always involved, or more regularly involved, Argentina. And that Argentina to lift the trophy and under 3.5 goals is probably where I'd be putting my money. I like that. Jack, are you going to stay up after the England game for the 1 o'clock kickoff and watch the game?
That's the intention right now. That is the intention, yeah.
It's hard work when you get there, isn't it? So
yeah, it depends on events from earlier in the day, I guess, and how tired and emotional I might be by that point of time. But yeah, that's the intention. So I actually backed Colombia at the start of the tournament at 10-1. So I can have a nice saver on Argentina to lift the trophy and under 3.5 goals, and that suits me well. But I've been enjoying getting on side with the tackles because of the dimensions of the pitches and so on and so forth. It's been a lot more concertinaed, hasn't it? So there's lots of angles there I've been enjoying as far as tackles, throw-ins and goal kicks, which obviously the props that we've seen with Bet365 are fulsome. So yeah, lots of angles there. But I'll no doubt have another look just before kickoff through one eye possibly, and have another interest bet to keep me going through the early hours.
I think there's a few, as you touched on there, Jack, I think there's a few in-play angles, so it's hard for me to state any bets at the moment. But if Colombia go a goal up at any point and Argentina are struggling, expect plenty of cards from Colombia, for sure. I don't know if it'll be the other way around. Maybe there'll be one or two sort of tactical ones from Argentina, but in play, if people are braving it and staying up, you will be rewarded with a few in-play angles. So Colombia cards, if they go a goal ahead at any point, I think they'll kick absolutely anyone, even if it is Messi, in order to win that trophy for the first time in over 2 decades. So that could be a really interesting play. So yeah, that probably a fourth bet potentially, 3.5 bets for the final.
Yeah, that sounds like my kind of game. I'm going to have to... I don't know if I'll be able to watch it, to be honest, if I'm out in Berlin, but I'll definitely be watching the highlights But look, another excellent show, gents. My pleasure as always. And I just want to say thanks for your contributions today and for previous podcasts and all your work for the website with the written content. And to the listeners, this is our last show of the season. So that's 26 episodes and out. We started the pod in February. And I'd like to think we're now in a place where it's a fairly informative listen and it's profitable, which is probably the main thing in this game. I'm personally ending the 26 episodes at a plus 14.3 units and 22.13% ROI. So I'm obviously over the moon with that. We will be back around. Thanks, Jack. We will be back around the start of August for an outright show and then straight into the EFL season, which kicks off on the 9th of August, which I'm absolutely buzzing for. So as always, if you're taking any of the bets on today's show, please do gamble responsibly. Take care, enjoy the summer with your loved ones, and we will see you in a few weeks' time to do it all over again. See you later.